Hi everyone, I'm Hannah Bronfman and welcome to In the Know Baby Banter, where we'll be talking with newbie moms and experts about all the life-changing topics that come with motherhood. From pregnancy and postpartum wellness to balancing being a full-time mom and having a career. There's so much we have to talk about, so let's dive in. Okay, guys, so excited. We have LA Thoma here with us today, who is a physiotherapist based in LA and is pregnant with her first baby. Hey,
Mhm.
LA, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you?
Good. I'm so excited to chat with you today because your Instagram is like a full wealth of knowledge when it comes to all things exercise and like I really feel like exercise safety as well. Like I feel like the
Hmm.
way you do your videos are so educational and
Yeah.
very you really like are about positioning and like doing exercises correctly, which
Hmm.
you being pregnant know more than ever how important it is to make sure that you're actually doing exercises that when you're in the right alignment, because when
Right.
you're not, I feel like that's when things go bad. So
Right.
can you tell us like a little bit about kind of the work that you do, and then I mean I have a bunch of questions for us, but
Yeah.
we can just start there.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm a physical therapist. Recently I did my undergraduate in exercise science, exercise physiology. I've always been an athlete and really into the fitness world as well. And just by the nature of my life right now with my husband, and we travel and we're in Canada a lot. I've kind of gone more down a fitness route recently. But the kind of the main thing I try to do with like my social media, my Dare to Be Active business and the app is really get across the basic principles of exercise and rehab and fitness that make it a little bit more digestible and easy for people to understand. Because a lot of the things that we do as physical therapists or even as fitness professionals, um, I feel like sometimes can be overcomplicated and it gets
Yeah.
like really confusing, and the fitness world can be really intimidating. So I feel like simplifying things and making um, I feel like people just remember it, easier if you
Yeah.
break it down a little bit more simply. So I don't know, that's kind of where all the stuff I'm doing now stemmed from.
Oh, I love that. And I think it's
Yeah.
so important. I think you're totally right. Like fitness world is very intimidating for so many people. And I feel like a lot of people don't really understand their point of entry or sometimes I feel like people are just like doing it for weight loss reasons and not
Right.
necessarily like longevity, and
Right.
that can also lead to injury, which then in turn kind of makes it harder to lose weight.
Right.
So it's that much more important that they are like people do know how to work out
Yeah.
properly. And
Yeah.
obviously being pregnant, it's so important to stay active, but to also like be smart about what you are doing and what you can and can't do. And I know that you have shared a bit about your pregnancy journey thus far,
Hmm.
and I wanted to ask you how HG has affected you physically and what that kind of is feeling for you. Obviously, you're so used to moving your body in certain ways and being super active. So, pregnancy on top of that in itself is just like a difficult thing. And then
Yeah,
you add
absolutely.
on HG, and that's a whole other
Yeah.
ball game. So, can you just tell us a
Yeah.
little bit about that?
Yeah. So HG, hyperemesis gravidarum, is it is basically excessive vomiting to where you are, losing weight, you can't eat, you can't drink. It can be pretty dangerous if it's left untreated or unmanaged. I thankfully got on it really quickly, got on medicine very quickly, which helped to manage things. Things weren't great, but they were managed. So yeah, going into my pregnancy, I was very fit, exercising all the time. I was very uh, proud of that. I think knowing that hopefully I was going to get pregnant soon. I mean, I didn't know when I would get pregnant, but I knew that that was a goal that I had, was to stay really healthy and fit during my pregnancy. And then HG just like hits you like a ton of bricks. And basically, I was bedbound for a couple months. I went on maybe 2 walks. So I was just laying down all day, every day. So I got really deconditioned, lost a lot of weight, and just, you're not even, you can't really do anything. So I didn't really feel guilty for not exercising because I knew I just physically could not. I think I had tried maybe once or twice to like get on like walk on the treadmill, and it was just bad news bears. You just felt so sick and awful. So yeah, I was just like, okay, this just isn't what I'm going to be doing. And I
Yeah.
just kind of let that be, and just tried to kind of survive those first couple months. And then as I started feeling a little bit better, going into my second trimester, I honestly just started with like a walk, and like a
Yeah.
walk down the street and back up the street, because I was severely deconditioned. And even that is like, you're like having to stop every two
Yeah.
seconds to like get your breath. And I was so sore after going on that walk. It was just such an experience. And like, and then, going into your second trimester, being the most deconditioned you've ever been your entire life, that was hard. But, I was just patient with myself and kind of just really slowly got back into, I'm essentially now doing my regular exercise routine with some modifications.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely a very slow ramp up from just like being horizontal to like being vertical.
Totally. Isn't it
Yeah.
so crazy, like the expectations that we have for the way things like, how we think things are going to go down. And then, like, just like pregnancy is just one of those things that really has like a full mind of its own and affects
Mm-hmm.
people in so many different ways. And like,
Yep.
no, I feel like it was my first lesson in like not being in control of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Especially like for me, it took us so long to get pregnant, and we went through IVF and everything. And just
Yeah.
even going through that was already so far from what I had expected, like how a baby was going to come into our life, that it was like, the control thing. It was just like, it's been such a learning lesson for me in terms of like what I'm capable of doing and how I'm able to like let go of things. But and then once the baby comes, you learn that in a whole new way.
Right.
It's just
Right.
it's so crazy because obviously you're so active, and so then for you to be hit with such a challenge, and thank God it was manageable because
Right.
now that you're on the other side of it. But it can also be a really big mental hurdle. Um,
Yeah. Absolutely.
yeah. I
Yeah.
know, like, what were you kind of doing? Obviously, like the physical stuff comes, you talk about it all the time. What are some of like the things that you were doing to kind of take care of yourself mentally in that time and now even?
Yeah. Um,
And then you add on the pandemic, so
right.
there's
Right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So a
I
lot of
mean,
like being kind to yourself, I feel like is like a huge theme that everyone's talking about, but it's so true.
yeah, I mean, I think bottom line, like that's absolutely it, is you kind of have to like disregard your expectations and kind of like throw them out the window, because if you're always trying to meet those, and like you said, like during pregnancy, it's like you try and get pregnant and then getting pregnant during pregnancy, it's like you just have to let things happen. And like you can have goals, but you have to be okay with if you don't reach those goals. And really, I think one of the biggest things I learned, especially with HG, like it was just my husband and I throughout that whole process, because we're kind of we're essentially quarantined up here in Canada, and he was my lifeline through that whole thing, and he just like took care of everything. And it was hard even to talk to anybody about it, because you kind of felt like one, you nothing was getting better, so you didn't want to keep saying, I feel bad, I feel bad, I feel terrible, because things weren't changing. I just didn't really want to talk about it. And, you know, a lot of my friends have gone through pregnancies where they have felt sick. So it's different, you know, it is definitely a very severe form of morning sickness.
Yeah.
But it's hard to have them relate so much to what you're going through, and you don't want to be like my sickness is worse than what you went through, because it's not, you don't want to compare, but it's also like hard to convey how terrible you feel. And actually, so towards the end of my pregnancy, I started to look at support groups, which was a big help. And I mean, or the end of my pregnancy, end of my first trimester. Um, that's the first time I started to felt okay to start looking at things. I just really wasn't there yet
Yeah.
before. Um, that really helped to see other people's stories, but also it really highlighted that a lot of women who have HG, they're the healthcare professionals who they go to don't believe them, essentially, because it's almost like not a lot is known about it, so it gets dismissed as it's just morning sickness,
Oh my
and it's
God.
not at all. And I that was shocking to me because I'm like, if somebody didn't believe how sick I was, I'd be
You
so
know what? Like that's honestly like not that shocking to me, to be honest. Like with everything that I've done so much research now on black maternal mortality, and I see the way like people are treated, and I it doesn't surprise me that a doctor wouldn't believe
yeah,
like those symptoms, which is
yeah,
really unfortunate and sad. I know that like obviously you're going with the flow right now in terms of like what is coming at you, and that's very much how I kind of like wanted to be in my pregnancy as well. And I got this question so many times and I found it so annoying, but I'm going to ask you it
yeah,
because
yeah,
I'd love to hear your answer.
yeah.
But knowing that anything can happen and like the unexpected is kind of what you kind of have to embrace. Do you have any sort of birth plan or kind of idea of how you want it to go down? And are you doing anything to kind of like mentally like manifest that or prepare for that or what?
Like, are you talking about like the rest of my journey thus far, or like the actual like
The
my actual birth plan?
I mean, you're like your delivery, like
My delivery
your
plan, the actual
delivery.
like action plan.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
Because,
it's
like,
so
for
I
instance,
actually,
I had this whole grand plan
right,
and I
right.
wanted to have a natural birth and I was going to
Hmm.
go into natural labor and I was going to labor at home and then, like, like, I was induced like a week late. So,
Yeah, which I heard is very common. My sister just had a baby too, a week ago, or a week and
oh
a half
my
ago,
God,
and
that's so fun that you
yeah,
guys are going to be so
I
close.
know, I know. Except
Oh,
she's so far away, I won't even see her until like December.
oh.
It's so
Well, they'll
sad,
have the
but
rest of their lives together.
yes, yes, that's what we keep saying. And it's
Yeah,
pandemic. We can't. Everybody's has
exactly.
been isolated. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah. So she had to get induced as well a week
Mm-hmm.
late, and I've
Yeah.
heard that's common in first pregnancies.
Yeah.
So yes, I do have an idea. It sounds like it's probably pretty similar to yours. I want to do things as natural as I can, but I have been doing like different courses and modules from different people, and that help you come up with like your birth plan. And the a constant through line that I'm seeing, which I appreciate, is that they say, this needs to be flexible. You have to be able to, um, you know, so essentially manage your expectations that if it doesn't happen, you don't feel like you failed,
Yeah.
or you're not so hard on yourself because
Right.
things happen.
Totally.
So
Totally.
so yes, I do have a plan and an idea of a natural birth, but I don't want to get disappointed because I've heard so many of my friends that have had to have emergency
Yeah.
C-sections,
Yeah.
and so that's just that's
Totally.
life.
Well,
Yeah.
it's great that you're being so open-minded, because I really do think that that is ultimately what's going to lead you to like a happy delivery.
Right.
And like I remember my sister-in-law when she wanted to have a home birth, and then they had planned for that and everything, and then she ended up having some complications and she ended up having to go to the hospital. The baby was fine, they were able to get the baby out, but because she was so hell bent on the home delivery, she was really quite worked up and upset about
Yeah.
having to go to the hospital, and it really just like it made for a stressful environment, I think,
Mm-hmm.
for like the whole
Mm-hmm.
delivery process. And I remember I actually got misdiagnosed with placenta previa.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it wasn't my OB at the time wasn't seeing me. I was going to somewhere that was closer in Long Island. This was like, peak COVID.
Right.
And so I wasn't traveling into the city for appointments. And the doctor that I went to go see diagnosed me with placenta previa. And like honestly, like really scared me in terms of like what that meant, and that I'd be having a C-section. And when I told my OB was like not convinced. She was like, I need to see you, blah, blah, but we were actually going to Canada too. So I couldn't see her before I left for Canada. So for those 6 weeks that I was gone and I didn't get to see her, I was really um, mentally trying to prepare myself for having a C-section, what that was going to mean. And I was actually born a C-section baby. So I
Mm-hmm.
did talk to my mom about it a lot.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I thought to myself, okay, well, if this is going to be the road in which that it brings me my baby, like, fine. Like,
Right.
I like, am okay with that. And then I got to New York and I went to go see my OB, and I didn't have placenta previa at all.
Yeah.
So, and
Wow.
with placenta previa, they tell you, you shouldn't be exercising,
Mm-hmm.
don't have sex, like all of these things and by the way, I felt really good and strong in my pregnancy, and working out was a big part of like a mental release for me, especially considering we were like isolated in Canada, like not seeing anyone. And
Yeah.
I mean, you know what it's like being pregnant in a pandemic. Like it's like everything is virtual, like all of your
Mm-hmm.
classes and all of that is just like an online experience. So
Right.
that was like really difficult when I was like not supposed to be doing anything out of like the only things that were like bringing me joy.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then for it to like be a completely different thing. So I totally hear you on being flexible. It's like
Yeah.
you just like don't know like where it's gonna go, and
Yeah.
as long as it like ends up being safe and a healthy baby on the other side, I feel like is
Right.
like all that matters. um
Exactly.
so what are some things that you are looking forward to, like either in the end of your pregnancy or once baby arrives, or like what are kind of like some things that you're just kind of looking forward to that are kind of helping you through these days?
Honestly, one of the things obviously like having a baby and just introducing this new life and dynamic into our world. I'm just so excited to see what our baby looks like. Like we always talk about like what kind of mix is it going to be, and all those fun things. But I'm so excited too to have like our families come up here. We haven't seen our families in so long. It's just been us two and a sprinkle of friends and coworkers up here. And our moms will be able to come up. They're vaccinated and they'll be able to come up to help with baby care. I don't exactly know what the rules are up here, but I think they can come up for like 6 months essentially if you're helping with childcare. So I
Amazing.
mean, I might be making that up, but I think it's something to that effect.
Great.
Yeah, so just having the family and people
Yeah.
around us for the first time in so long, I'm very excited
I know
about
my
that.
my father-in-law didn't meet our son until just like a month ago. So he
Isn't
was
that
4 months
crazy?
old, and that's when he met his grandfather for the first time. I know. It's like it's really
Pandemic
crazy.
babies.
Yeah.
Or like they
COVID
see one of
kids.
our friends has only seen people through like FaceTime.
Masks.
And
Oh yeah,
so
yeah.
they're so responsive to face because that's the only way they've seen anybody else,
Yeah.
really.
Yeah, it's
And
really crazy.
yeah, it's crazy.
So I want to just go back to exercising for really, really quick. What I feel like, what are the top three stretches that you're doing right now that you think are like the most effective? I know, like in pregnancy, like, you know, like you can have sciatic nerves, you can have like, lower back pain. Obviously, your stomach is moving outward, so the balance in your body is
Mm-hmm.
just completely
Mm-hmm.
off. So, what are
Yeah.
you finding right now that is really working for you? And it's like kind of like you're like, it's your move, you love it, it's delicious, you like to sit in
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. 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 I think so. I've been getting, sleepy on I'm very much like a stomach back. I flop all over the place type of sleeper. So like
Yeah.
sleeping on one side or the other has been rough for me.
Yeah.
So I'm waking up every morning with the stiff back. So using my yoga ball and doing like I'll just lay on it and do like like sit on it and then like lay on it and do like back extensions on it. That's been amazing. And then just sitting on it and stretching my hips has been great too. I actually just posted today, just in the last two like reels I posted were a back stretching and a hip stretching routine. Um, there's not like a I would do this one exercise. Like will sit on a yoga ball and just sit and do a million different stretches and movements. Because really, ultimately, the more you move, and this is not just for pregnancy, but really for everybody, like postural related pain is from not moving a lot, essentially. So, like, the more you move, the less pain you're going to feel.
Oh wow.
So, I just try to move a lot, try to stretch a
Yeah.
lot. If I'm standing in the kitchen, I stretch. If I'm like watching TV, I'll stretch. So the amount of time I stretch is kind of the biggest key versus like exactly the stretch that I'm
Got
doing.
it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I have to say that I'm way more sore post baby's arrival than I was during pregnancy. Like,
Yeah.
you just like the way that you are breastfeeding and holding the
Hmm.
baby and leaning over the
Yeah.
crib and like the whole thing.
Body
I'm
mechanics. Yeah.
way more sore now
Yeah.
than I was in my pregnancy. And
Yeah.
that's like been like really crazy. And like I'm a huge fan of body work, and it's again like it's pandemic, so it's hard to like get those treatments in or things like that. So I've been like addicted to my little ball,
Yeah.
and just like I literally put the ball on the wall under my shoulder blades and
Yes.
just
That's a
like
good one.
I
Yep.
feel like a
Yeah.
like a
Yeah.
dog like in the grass. I'm just like
Yeah.
literally
Like
like
scratching your back.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like unbelievable.
Yeah.
I also want to quickly touch on the fact that obviously because you're a physiotherapist, like you must know like so much about diastasis recti, which I feel like I knew a lot about, but like my community, I feel like didn't really know much about it or like really how important the safety around working out post baby and like how much that really um, is it, like how much of a core deficit you're working with,
Right. Right.
and what it takes to kind of get back. And I didn't
Yeah.
even think about working out until like, I don't know, maybe 7 weeks postpartum.
Right.
And do you have like thoughts or ideas about like kind of what your postpartum fitness journey will look like? And are you just kind of, are you like someone who's, you're going to want to jump back into it? Or are you going to try and just like take time and like be intuitive about it? Or like kind of like, what's your vibe?
So when it comes to like even prenatal, workout plans, I've hesitated really giving people like you should do this type of guidance because, like you said, it's so individualized and it's so different for everybody. So I really try to keep things general. But like when it comes to postpartum and like a diastasis, the bottom line is you need to build everything up from the inside out. So, they tell you don't do anything for 6 weeks or different if you have a C-section. Um, but during that time, you don't, obviously, you're not jumping back into your full exercise program, but you do want to start turning on those deep core pelvic floor muscles. And that's with the breath work or, the practice zipping up your core and lifting that pelvic floor up and relaxing it, really starting to turn those things on because those things aren't super taxing. You can do it just sitting down or laying down or while you're breastfeeding. Those are the things you can start to do in that 6 weeks so that you're not like, bam, at 6 weeks, now I'm jumping into my exercise program, which I'm sure a lot of women were like, yeah, that's not going to happen. But, I haven't been there yet. So I do hesitate. Like, I treat um, pregnant women for a lot of like the postural things that you're talking about. Like we have to
Yeah.
talk about like don't sit with your baby on one side or, how are you breastfeeding and things like that. But I'm gonna hold on my postnatal, all my
Okay.
postnatal suggestions till I like feel it,
I
because
hear
I feel
you.
like I'll be able to speak so from such a more true position once I get there. But I think bottom line is that working from the inside out, making sure you build up that pelvic floor deep core. And honestly, I think everybody should be seeing a pelvic physical therapist. I'm a orthopedic physical therapist, so we treat everything, but the pelvic physical therapist treat for you from the inside out, and they will help you. You just need to rebuild that up. And it's not always just about doing Kegels. It's very all encompassing. Your pelvic floor has to be able to contract and relax and move with you. It's not just like always contracting with the Kegel. So there's just so much more involved with that. So
So, okay, so I love that you brought up the pelvic floor. So I just want to like harp on it for just like a minute. So, I've done Pilates for over like a decade now, so I felt like I was very in tune with my pelvic floor and being able to activate it and release it, just kind of like what you were talking about. And then, like, as I was getting down to like the last couple of weeks, leading into labor, I really started to kind of like shift my mindset and really kind of focus on um, what I like to call like the main event.
yeah,
And and
yeah,
I was trying to like do a lot to prepare my pelvic floor for obviously the
the
act of
birth.
giving birth.
Right, right. Yeah,
And I had found out that actually, when your pelvic floor, and you can come in and tell me and
yeah,
expand on this, but
yeah.
essentially that, the tighter the pelvic floor, which I feel like we all think like tight pelvic
Right,
floor, but the
right.
tighter the pelvic floor and before going into birth, actually the harder it's going to
Hmm.
be
Yeah,
to kind of get baby through the canal.
right.
So I then started doing a lot of I'm gonna ruin. I hate saying this word. Perineal. Per,
Perianal.
thank you.
Per
Uh,
you just don't want to say the word.
I honestly I
Yeah,
can't pronounce it, and I just
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah,
Massages,
yeah, yeah.
because I was really like I was nervous about tearing, and I was just
Hmm.
nervous in general about um, I felt like my pelvic floor was tight. And so I was trying to do the most to kind of like prep and like, so have you done the whatchamacallit massage that I'm talking about?
I haven't yet,
Do you have
but I
other,
do.
do you have other tips of like how to like kind of soften?
Yeah.
You know what I'm
So
saying?
yes, yes, I do.
Okay.
Um, so to be honest, a pelvic floor physical therapist by far way better at giving the advice specifically for this.
Got it.
So
Got it.
anybody watching, find a pelvic floor physical therapist. I can only speak in generalities about
Okay.
this specifically. Um, but yes, so you do need to have your pelvic floor be able to relax. That is a huge part of giving birth. Um, actually, that was one. My sister had a really hard labor, and that was one of the reasons why it was really hard. Like she couldn't get her pelvic floor to relax. So doing those relaxation type techniques, like the massages, again, I can't speak to exactly the method of
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
that. But
You don't want to give us a demo?
no, yeah, just, anyways, I actually, to be honest, before one of my coworkers a couple years ago, he was the first person to tell me about those kind of stretching massages, and he was helping his wife, and I was like, first of all, that's amazing that you were
Yeah,
helping your wife do that. And I'm
yeah.
immediately at home like, so listen what you're gonna have to do when I get pregnant. My girl's like, excuse me? Like, let's discuss this whole situation first. But yeah, I actually didn't know that you, especially for to help you not tear, essentially. I didn't know that you should be stretching. So that was something I had just learned a couple years ago. So yeah, the relaxation, the stretching, those are all very important for the birth process.
Totally. Well, LA, this was such a great combo. Thank you so much for taking the time to
Yeah, of
chat with me.
course. Thanks
I
for
wish
having me.
you like a beautiful rest of the journey, and
Thank
like I just am
you.
so excited for you to like get on the other side because
Yeah,
it's so amazing. But I will
I'm so
say like
excited.
it will forever be changed, so definitely soak up all the time that you have just with your
I
husband
know. I
before you
know.
guys are a family of 3.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
excited. Thank you so much for having me. It's
Of
been
course.
fun.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
Okay.
All
Chat
right.
soon. Thank you so much for tuning in, and make sure you head to In the Know Parenting for more. I'm Hannah Bronfman, and I'll see you on another episode of In the Know Baby Banter.